Now this is a horrible question. A horrible, horrible question that I do not want to answer, but I'm going to. Which is better, Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts? Yes, I know, I've created myself a lose-lose situation in this video, because no matter what I say, it's going to piss some people off. If I just flip-flop around, I'll say they're both good. They're both good in their own way. The people are going to say I copped out on the answer, and if I do specifically pick one, then it's going to make the other fan base lay salt. The other franchise. But I'm going to say, I'm going to do my best shot. I'm going to try to be as objective about subjective material as possible, because I think this is all subjective. There's no real way to objectively say which is better, so there's no point of me even trying. They both are fantastic franchises, and there's no way I'm going to be able to say this is categorically better than this. So it's just my opinion, but for anyone who doesn't know, this is coming from someone who has just recently played the Kingdom Hearts series back to back. I mean 3-4 months, every Kingdom Hearts game. I'd never played it before in my life, so it was balls to the walls. It was pound me up the backside, no breaks in between, no long waiting periods. And of course that's going to play a huge part of me reviewing these franchises, because with Final Fantasy, I played it since I was 10. I had year 2, even 4 to 5 year breaks in between. And of course, what do us true fanatic fans do in that time? We go off and we explore nuances in the story, we do theories, and we learn things about the story that were kind of hidden in either obscurity or were intentionally put in there for people to kind of investigate and find out afterwards. I didn't have that with Kingdom Hearts. It was straight into one title after the other. So I appreciate, even though I have played the Kingdom Hearts series, I'm still not that fully informed. If I'd have had breaks in between, I'm sure there is so much I still don't know. But cutting all that bullshit out of the way, cutting all that disclaimer nonsense out, I'm going to get straight into it. I'm going to dive straight in. Let's start with music. Might as well, because I'm just going to instantly call it a draw. Straight away. Instantly, no point even trying to say both franchises have some of the best music that I have ever heard in any games. But I mean, that's typical of JRPGs and Square Enix. One thing that they have not failed, and oh goddamn am I relieved, because of all the missteps that have been made. I'm sure in both franchises, both have their flaws. One thing that I don't think either have done, from what I could tell, is taken any missteps with soundtracks. All of them have had passion, all of them have fit the style, the theme, and they've really put effort into. So I cannot criticise either of them, but at the same time, like fuck can I pick between them? So personally, I'm calling that one a draw. Oh, shit, I'm already flip-flopping, aren't I? Moving on next to story. Now this is probably what's going to really divide, and kind of why I'm going to say outright, because I'm not going to make you guys wait until the end of the video to get the answer. It's not going to come any surprise to you that I am going to pick Final Fantasy. I still think Final Fantasy, for me personally, is the better franchise. It's more suited to my tastes. And I know that answer comes across as kind of, well, that's so obvious because you're the Final Fantasy peasant, you would say that. I'd like to say that there is a level of objectivity to it that I would have given it to Kingdom Hearts. Like if it genuinely beaten Final Fantasy, I would say it, because though I have a Final Fantasy channel, I had no qualms in saying that Nier Automata is better than any Final Fantasy I have ever played. I mean, you guys have heard it, so anyone who tries to come and say that, Pez, you were never going to give it to Kingdom Hearts no matter what, I'm going to say bullshit to that. I really would have. But the reason why it goes to Final Fantasy, and it goes into the story. The story of these two franchises is so vastly different. Or the method of telling the story, or the format, should I say. With Final Fantasy, as we all know, it's a different story every single time. It's a new experience. You jump in. Every character has to be developed in that one story. Most of the time, at least anyway, they are self-contained stories that have to be rounded out by the end. And you can really feel it with Final Fantasy that that's what they have to do, and that you do get most of the answers that you're looking for in that single title. Whereas with Kingdom Hearts, fuck me, it's just a riddle of mysteries, and the more of those mysteries you get answered, oftentimes just creates even more questions, to the point you kind of wonder, am I ever going to get all the answers to this? And there's a side to me that does like that, because there's so many times I've played a Final Fantasy where it's just felt too short. Like the world, the story, the lore, it's been so immersive and fleshed out that by the time it's hit that 40-hour finish limit, on average, I've kind of been like, no, please continue. I don't want to leave this story. I don't leave this game, these worlds, these characters. And I'm one of those motherfuckers who always just wants that next sequel. Even if it's not needed, like 10-3. I actually want that. Why do I want it? There's no need for it. So with that in mind, Kingdom Hearts, that's the way to go. If you're like that, Kingdom Hearts is going to be that story where you are never going to hit the end of the track, the sudden buffer, where you finish the game and your life just has no meaning anymore. The moment those credits roll and your soul just hollows out because you realise there's not going to be another one. But Kingdom Hearts, that's where it's beautiful, because it will always be there to deliver the next part of the story. And I really think that's also what plays into its strength, is that because it is like one huge story across multiple games, that the characters definitely end up with an infinite more amount of fleshing out. And that's kind of where I think Kingdom Hearts starts to, not steals the throne from Final Fantasy, but in that particular story, in that particular universe, and with those particular characters, it just overshadows everything. So a great example of what I mean, take Xehanort for example. So many people saying, Pez, do you think Xehanort is better than Sephiroth, Arden, Kefka? And while if I had to have answered that after Kingdom Hearts 1, I would have said no. I don't think he is. I think there was a lot of things with his motives that I wasn't quite sure about, or we didn't know. And just generally his character development would not have been enough to excel the Final Fantasy villains. But multiple stories later, where Xehanort has had far more time to shine, where his character has become so evolved, his motives, his plots, his scheming, his villainry, it gets to the point where now I kind of have to say, yeah, Xehanort is better than most Final Fantasy villains. But is it fair that because he had so many extra games? And I kind of made this argument when people used to argue about Sephiroth versus Kefka. Sephiroth had an entire another game. He even had a movie. Is it fair to compare these kind of characters and say which is better when their screen time is just so vastly different, where you could kind of say, yes, Sora and those heroes have been around so much longer, and it kind of does make your connection to them so much stronger because you've been through so many more hardships and trials, and you've seen them in action and the scenarios and the things they've had to deal with. But what Final Fantasy then makes up to counter that is the level of diversity, the number of different characters, the fact we probably have about 6 or 7 times the number of characters than the Kingdom Hearts franchise does, and we get all these different worlds and world laws, get to see so many different themes and styles and levels of darkness and grit, whereas Kingdom Hearts, it always kind of stays on a level. God damn, can you tell how hard this is? It's just a constant back and forth. You trade off aspects across both franchises. I think that's why Final Fantasy is going to end up winning this, no matter, once I go through these other points. It is the fact that we get to jump into different stories each time. Despite me being a real sucker for story, and that I've always believed a story can never be fleshed out enough. However much fleshing you do, flesh it out some more. And Kingdom Hearts really gives its times and its characters, its pacing and its story time to do that. But the feeling of just jumping into a whole new Final Fantasy, I don't think is anything that Kingdom Hearts can truly match, where you're going to learn a whole new cast, a whole new world lore, and you have absolutely no idea what is in store, what awaits you, what is going to come your way. Whereas with Kingdom Hearts, I think you can make educated guesses and you can just feel where the next chapter of the story will go. Now that's not to say that Kingdom Hearts hasn't mixed it up. When I played Final Fantasy Chi, that's what I really loved. Did I just say Final Fantasy Chi, Kingdom Hearts Chi X, where it really flipped up the story, a totally different era, totally different characters. So they did give Kingdom Hearts the Final Fantasy treatment, where it totally just went into a whole other story, and I really like that. I don't know how well that was received in the Kingdom Hearts franchise or even Chain of Memories, so I think that's why I'm more erring towards the FF side. But also the issue with the story for me, and this is why it's going to go even more towards Final Fantasy. I know some people are going to hate me saying this, but the reason why I wasn't sure about Kingdom Hearts, it was the Disney side of things. I'm going to say it openly and honestly, that was the thing that kind of always made me not play it. It was just always that franchise and game that it just made no sense from an outsider looking in. And it was funny, there was even an article an hour ago on The Guardian, and it was saying how Kingdom Hearts, it was just a franchise that when you think about it, none of it should work. I mean, it doesn't. It just makes no sense conceptually. You've got Western Disney characters being mixed in with Japanese Final Fantasy characters, and then there's also a OC cast thrown in as well. It just makes no sense. But I can honestly say, after playing Kingdom Hearts, it works. It just works. And I ended up falling in love with the Kingdom Hearts franchise. I really did think I did. I'll say, guys, Kingdom Hearts, no matter what I say, it has monumentally shocked me. I did not imagine 1 second I would enjoy it as much as I have, to the point where I'm here holding it up against my all-time favourite franchise, and I'm kind of tackling with which I think is better. And I would say I'm tackling. In fact, there's going to be certain points like combat system that I'm going to give to Kingdom Hearts. But quickly finishing with the story, it was the Disney side. And it is the worlds. While I love them, while I love going off and frolicking in Tron World or Beast Castle or Under the Sea, it just feels like a break from the story a lot of the time, because I'm a major story junkie. I love immersion. This is why it goes to Final Fantasy. It can never be more balls to the walls for me. I like to be dropped into the story, and I like it just to be continuous. Full steam ahead, story, start to finish. And that's why I love FF13 as much as I do. It didn't have any of the distractions. It was just straight in. The crew never had time to rest. They couldn't do mini games or questing if they ever stopped off. No, the Psycom were instantly on their backs, and you really felt the pressure. You felt like fugitives, and you never came up for air. And that's often how I always play my Final Fantasy games, is I always end up getting roped into the story. When I see a bit of a story beginning to form and cliffhanger, I end up just latching onto it, and I just end up playing through the story and then going back and doing the mini games and the questing. So I'm just such a ravenous motherfucker for storyline, and that's what it was with Kingdom Hearts. It's got such a complex story, which is why Kingdom Hearts was just fantastic for me, because the more complex it is, the more confusing, or what some people say convoluted, the better it is to me, because I am just one of those people, I want to be bamboozled. And I just like my storylines to be at that level of intensity, which for a Disney game, or a game with Disney characters in, that's what was really surprising about Kingdom Hearts and why I love it. But that was the issue with the Disney worlds, is they were just always a detraction from that. While they were fun and I liked doing them, I often found myself just playing them while deep down inside I was just yearning to get back onto the main storyline with the main OC characters for that universe. And there was always a side to me that when I went into Disney World, it was, this is going to be like a 3 or 4 hour diversion from the story until I get to learn more. Now, I got to say, they definitely tidied that up as the franchise continued. They started then sort of tying the characters back in at the end. They even had certain Disney characters come back, and I feel they really fixed up the pacing. But despite all of that, you would step into a Disney world, and I always felt like that they tried to flesh out those characters, but as much as they try, they're never going to be that fleshed out, because you kind of go in and they're like trying to flesh out Quasimodo to you, or Esmeralda. I don't know, the relationship between Mulan and the captain. Like, they try to flesh out the characters, but because they have such a short space and time to do it, and because you as the player knows that once you finish this world, there's going to be a shelf life to that characterization. Like, it's just going to come to a dead halt at some point. It's kind of hard to get super invested. And because I like to be super invested rather than just play for the sheer, open, honest, plain enjoyment of that world, which a lot of people like that. They like that kind of format. Oh, another great example was the World Ends With You crew. I really liked them in Dream Drop Distance, but then they just had no appearance at the end. I started learning about this character Joshua and who he was, and all these other characters and their relationship, like Rhyme and Beat and all that lot. I wanted to see that go somewhere. I was really hyped for it, but they're not the original crew, so it doesn't happen. It never goes down that way. So that's why on a story fight I give it to Final Fantasy. Jesus Christ, it's going to be a long video. I give it to that. Not to say that Kingdom Hearts is just one of the most crazy, complex experiences ever. And I'm just gripped. As far as actual individual stories, this is by far one of the most gripping and complex. But I suppose it's more just the format and the fact that it changes every single game. But busting onto combat system, and yep, I'm gonna give it to Kingdom Hearts. And this was something that kind of wounded me a bit about Final Fantasy and made me realise, is that the Kingdom Hearts franchise has kind of excelled. Like, it's kind of stepped a foot ahead of Final Fantasy, and it disappoints me because of course I love Final Fantasy and I followed its combat system, and I've watched it evolve over years, and I don't want to sound like a 15 hater, but this is the thing that disappoints me most about 15, is it took everything that the Final Fantasy franchise had started evolving on. Like, it had found new and invigorating innovative ways to make turn-based combat faster, more pacey, and we really started to see improvements from the way they started implementing job classes, and the gambit system, which was revolutionary at the time, to how 10.2 took that turn-based, straight line structure, and they decided, you know what, fuck it, why don't we just put them in free moving positions? Why are they in regimented lines? Let's get it more free-flowing. And then 13 brought in some really cool new mechanics. I don't care what anyone says if they hate it. I thought the stagger system was a fantastic new type of strategic gameplay that we had never had before. And while any of these Final Fantasies were good in their own right, it was always like little snippets of learning. And I was always hopeful that with something like 15 or 16, it would be like the culmination of everything that they had learned, that they'd bring something completely spectacular to the stage that proved that turn-based combat was and is and could still be relevant, and reach those lofty heights of 10 million sales. But then it just seems like Final Fantasy gave up on it. Square Enix, in my eyes, just kind of admitted defeat with 15 and just admitted that turn-based, they couldn't do it. They couldn't make it popular to even today's gamers, and they just had to go action-orientated. So they scrapped everything that a 30-year franchise has started evolving on and just went back to the drawing board. Just scrapped everything, said, yep, let's go action-orientated. And are they by any means the masters of action-orientated? I'm not saying 15 is a bad combat system, really enjoyed it. But Square Enix are by no means the forerunners. There are so many other action companies that have been doing it for way longer. And yeah, frankly, they're just better at it. So that's what really disappointed me. Whereas with Kingdom Hearts, oh man, this franchise just got more and more dedicated, more and more, it stays so true and faithful to its combat system throughout and evolving on its combat system, that we're now at the stage, and it's so clear to me why Dissidia was based on Kingdom Hearts combat, why even the FF7 remake they are now saying is going to be Kingdom Hearts-esque. So even now the Final Fantasy franchise, seemingly because it's lost its identity in Square Enix, I feel like they don't really know which direction to take it. They're looking over at Kingdom Hearts and they're saying, let's have some of that. That's doing well. KH know where it at. And they're right, it does. And now when I even look at the new Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, which shows how they're taking that combat system even further and how spectacular it looks, and how so much is now taking influence and turning to Kingdom Hearts for influence. It seems just so clear to me that KH has started winning the combat race. But again, is there any denying that Final Fantasy has been the combat system that's followed me most of my life, and I have the most nostalgia and love and fondest memories behind? Of course it does. But again, this is part of being objective, so I'm going to give it to Kingdom Hearts. But moving on to world lore, the world, the universe, its characters, its people, its immersion. Who do I give this one to? Jesus. So I mean, again, with Final Fantasy, it changes it every single time. Create entirely new world laws, just the rules of the universe, how it works, what death means, what life means, where magic comes from. Everything is just fresh, original, and unique. And the thing I love about Final Fantasy is how it always takes its lore seriously, and it takes the rules of its law seriously. There's so many times where either some sort of downfall or tragedy, or the entire premise of the story is led by the law of the universe. So with Type 0, I don't want to say anything for spoilers, but the law of what happens to people when dying, how that affects other people, even with the ending of FF15 and Noctis. Magic and the laws of that universe are what led to the ending of 15, and it's done that with nearly all Final Fantasies, and I like that level of commitment. That's one thing I've always loved about Final Fantasy, is how committed it is. Whereas with Kingdom Hearts, not to say it doesn't have a world lore, I mean, it kind of does, but of course there's so many different universes and planets. Sora walks into the world and he's suddenly a toy and he has to learn this world, or he looks retro, or they've turned into animals like in the Lion King one, or say the Pirates of the Caribbean one, where they're totally different art style altogether. But despite that huge cocktail of different worlds and world laws and universe laws, there is still a concurrent one. And that's what I like. Things with the Heartless and how that all works, and Nobodies and Dream Eaters. But that's the other thing, it feels like world laws have had to be changed and manipulated, and of course they have. That's exactly what Nomura has done as the game goes on. World law evolves, the law of what Sora can do, of what Hearts can do, of what Nobodies could do. It's like it almost gets changed. I don't want to say it gets changed, it gets evolved on. I kind of feel in Kingdom Hearts, even though Nomura has done a fantastic job at keeping it it's logical, keeping it sensible, keeping a reasoning for everything. That it still doesn't prevent the fact that certain things have so obviously been changed to divert a new story or a new path that it kind of makes you wonder exactly what the Kingdom Hearts world lore is, and anything that you do think you understand of the Kingdom Hearts world lore, is it really true, or will Nomura just change it at the drop of a hat one day? But with Final Fantasy, you know, they're going to make it, they're going to stick to it, and you kind of really just get to hone in and explore it in that particular case more often. And again, you've got more diversity, so you've got more exploring to do. That's where I just think Final Fantasy just excels, because it's just, if you're like a spoilt child, if you don't like one thing, you don't like one aspect, it's always going to change. But again, I mean, even that could be a downside, because Final Fantasy, it changes so often. There's definitely times where it makes missteps, it has bad games. It could pull out a world, or even a design of a world, that you just don't like. So with Kingdom Hearts, you're always safer. It always has closely tied universe and knitted narrative that, you're not going to get... It's not such a wild card like Final Fantasy is, because you're definitely going to end up with a Final Fantasy you most likely don't like, or... In my case, because I'm a super fanboy, I actually do like them all. But certain Final Fantasies where I had to play them 2 or even 3 times to really find an appreciation for them. And then finally, because there's still a huge checklist of things I could go through, mechanics, art style, more about the characters, all kinds of stuff. Just how did it make me feel, just to round out? How did I take away from both franchises? The Kingdom Hearts marathon that I did, it was honestly one of the most enjoyable 3 or 4 months that I have had. And like I said, I can't imagine how it would be if I played it the way most of you have played it over the course of 15 or 20 years. It would definitely be different. But for me, playing it that close together, it was just incredibly fun. You guys should be jealous, because I know, and I would be, if somebody got to do the entire Final Fantasy franchise fresh, back to back. Oh, what an experience they would have. I'm still going to give it to Final Fantasy, because it's part of that level of fun to do it back to back like that. It's never going to compare to the memories. It's not going to compete, and just the vast number of memories. It keeps coming back to the same point. Every time I've tried to think about ways to compare these, it always goes back to that same thing. One franchise just has more games and it has just more diversity in it, and the other one is just more of the same kind of story and feeling, but just a far greater level of detail and exploration in it. I didn't for 1 minute ever expect for Donald, Goofy and Sora, for me to love this little trio, or the Wayfinder trio, or the Destiny Islands trio. Like, the relationships are so much stronger, but compared to just the vast memories of Final Fantasy, it's just so many more of them, just so many more scenarios and situations you were in, and connections and relationships, and even just art styles. I feel with Kingdom Hearts, of course it's changing art styles, but it's always tried to be the same art style, but always just try to improve it graphically. Of course, within that game you get multiple different art styles, again, like Pirates of the Caribbean world, in a totally different visual look, and what Toy Story would be in Kingdom Hearts 3. But you know what I mean, guys, with Final Fantasy, it just has so much more than Kingdom Hearts does, and it is unfair, because there are something ridiculous. There's not even just 15 Final Fantasies, even if you just include the spin-offs. If you include all the Final Fantasy games, I think it's something ridiculous, like 50, 60. Off the top of my head, I have no idea, but I know it's something like over 50. Whereas how many Kingdom Hearts games are there? What, 9, 10? And it's been going for way less time than Final Fantasy, so it's just more of a established franchise, and there's just more to take away. And I know that sounds unfair. It's unfair that it has more games, but again, it was unfair that I gave things like characters and story development to Kingdom Hearts. Again, that example of Xehanort, he definitely sits as one of the best, or he's. I mean, do we talk about Xehanort in the singular or the plural? I mean, I suppose I could talk about each specific Xehanort, like Golemort and Younganort, Potato Sackanort, but when I think of Xehanort, I just think about the whole thing, all of them across all the games. So kind of what gets Xehanort to that status, and what gets Kingdom Hearts to it, is also its downfall. It wins a lot on the fleshing out front, if it makes sense, because it's got so many games, but because that's got so many games, but this has so many more just different. So that's my review, guys. I mean, I kind of scripted and thought through what I wanted, but I'm kind of just rambling and bumbling. But there it is. That's my takeaway of Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. Hopefully what I was trying to say came across clear enough. That I'm going to say that for me, Firstly, just because of my personal taste, the way I like stories to be told, the way I like their format, and pretty much everything that gravitated me to being as passionate as I am towards Final Fantasy now. That's why I say Final Fantasy is the better franchise, but I appreciate it's all subjective, and I don't say it's that much better by a long shot, because Kingdom Hearts, there was no way I ever thought it was going to get as close as it was to where I actually had to sit and struggle. I always knew I was going to review these two franchises once I played them, and frankly I just really think they're both fucking dope. So there it is. Until the next video, let me know what you think. God, how do I round this video out? May your heart be your guiding fantasy. Kupo key. Kupo.